Hi there.
Welcome to Shebrew, a Torah portion through the lens of relationships.
Tonight we're looking at Hayi Sarah. That means the life of Sarah. That's going to be Genesis or Bereshit 23:1 through 25:18.
And it's not my life we're looking at here.
No.
No.
But we do love looking at the walk of Abraham and Sarah just because Sarah is my beautiful wife's namesake.
Yes, it is. But yes, this is going to be a fun evening.
So yeah, we're again just taking this journey through the Torah this year, looking at all of the relationships that are happening. We are looking at the way people are communicating with each other or the lack of communication with each other, and the relationships between people and the relationships between people and God.
Yes, exactly. So here we go. Let's dig in.
So we're going to start out in chapter 23, and we're just going to read verse 1 through 3. And Sarah lived 127 years, the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And then Abraham rose up from beside his dead and spoke this to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a foreigner and a sojourner among you. Give me property for a burial site among you, so that I bury my dead from my presence.
So do you prepare for your future? None of us like to think about death. None of us want to think about what happens when we die. But while you're alive now, talk to your family members, find out, let them know and be like, hey, guess what? I want this music played at my funeral. I want this played at my memorial. I want these kind of flowers. I want to be cremated. I want to be buried. Even go to the place of, okay, this is where I want to get buried at. Some people go ahead and pick some of that out. So the family members are not having to do that. I remember receiving a phone call when I was 23 years old. My best friend passed away, and I had to make some hard decisions at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was terrible in regards to that, but us girls talked about it when we were teenagers. We played some of those things as kids with our Barbie dolls, when we were 8, 9, 10 years old, just because we're kids, And so you see those things, you learn those things, but it's good to go ahead and prepare for the future. Don't leave it to the person that you've left behind while they're mourning you and while they're grieving that part of their life. Go ahead and do some of that now. Sit down with your spouse, sit down with your family members and be like, guess what? This is what I want done. I have scriptures in the back of my Bible saying, I want this read at my funeral. I have some of that information already done because I've experienced it with some friends already that did not have it ready. And I want to make sure that it's ready for us.
Yeah. And as far as it goes for you singles out there that are talking to potential spouses, these are issues you need to bring up. Yeah. Things like the treatment of the body after death, as Sarah hit on. Are you wanting to be having even a Jewish burial ceremony? Yeah. Are you wanting to be cremated? How do you want your body to be treated after death? Yeah. What are appropriate days to have memorial or funeral services?
Oh, that's huge.
Some people are not at all wanting to have it on, Shabbat, and other people might be okay with that. So you just need to talk about those things and make sure you're on the same page. What about life insurance policies for each other? Yeah. Just get these things on the table. Don't wait. Just go ahead and talk about it and make sure you're on the same page about these very important things.
Yeah. And take care of it. And if you are single, go ahead and prepare right now.
Yeah.
And if you have really close friends or family members, let your people know, hey, this is where it's at my house. If something happens to me, I want you to be able to have this information. My mom knew where that was. I had a binder that had all the information right there. So if something happened to me, she knew, my brothers knew where to go ahead and get it, who to go ahead and call to be able to get everything set up. And now that we're married, Mark has that information, and he knows exactly where that information is. So if something does happen, then it's right there. It's okay to go ahead and think about the future. This is preparing for it. And if we look in the Word, this is what they did. They prepared for the future.
Yes. Well, that's a great topic. We'll move on now to this conversation that happens between Abraham and the sons of Heth, and as he is trying to go ahead and secure a burial site for Sarah and for himself and for his family for the future. It is a little bit different for Abraham because he had just moved into this land. He was a sojourner in this land. He, had no opportunity to do this stuff. So it kind of came upon him suddenly.
Yeah.
But now he's wanting to go ahead and secure it for Sarah, for himself, and for his children.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and look at, let's see.
What should I read?
Let's read verse 5 and 6.
Okay. And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our graves. None of us will refuse you his grave for burying your dead. So
we see how Abraham was regarded by these sons of Heth. He is steadily building a reputation in the land of Canaan. In verse 6, we do actually have the word Elohim there. So a lot of translations go ahead and say mighty, and that is definitely, mighty one is a proper translation of it. You could also translate as you are a prince of Elohim, so you're a prince of God. This was his reputation, known by the sons of Seth. The Hebrew is Nasi Elohim Atah, which means you are a prince of God, or you are a mighty prince. Point being that Abraham was highly honored, respected, even feared in Canaan. It was known by the Canaanite leaders that Elohim was with Abraham and that Abraham was a prince or a representative of Elohim. So that being said, we want to look at how are you perceived by those in your sphere of influence? That's turning it towards you. When the people that you are around, how do they look at you? What is your reputation among them? Now, they probably don't call you a prince of Elohim, but do they call you a son of the living God?
Yeah.
Do they call you a daughter of the living God?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's us. But, how is your potential spouse, someone that you're courting, someone that you're looking at, how are they perceived in their sphere of influence?
Yeah.
How are you going to find that kind of stuff out? Have you spoken with people in their circle, their friends, their family, pastors, neighbors, etc.? Are they known as a Messiah follower? Or are they known as a image bearer, a representative of Elohim? So that's, a great thing to go ahead and be on the lookout for.
Yeah, do they have the characteristics of God?
Yes.
Do they honor and respect him, or do they talk down, or what do they do? How do they speak? What are they known in the gates for? In other words. So that's good.
As we keep on going through this conversation, Abraham makes it known a certain property that he wants. It's the cave of Machpelah. And the sons of Heth, let him know that it belongs to this man named Ephron the Hittite. So let's go ahead and read verse 10 and 11.
Now Ephron was sitting among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, even of all who went in at the gate of his city, saying, Now, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the presence of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. Wow.
Did you catch how many times in verse 11 he said, I give you?
Yeah.
He said it 3 times. He's being really insistent upon this.
Yeah.
Now, Abraham, previously, we didn't read this little part. It is good to read the whole chunk so you get the flow. Yes. Abraham said, I desire to bury my dead, and let me have it. I want to give it, the complete amount of silver. Yeah. But Ephron the Hittite says, I give it to you. I give it to you. I give it to you. The thing that we just, that I get from this is that not all gifts are free. Yeah. Usually, or at least often, there are strings attached. So an important thing to know is that gifts can be a form of manipulation. And as a single man or a single woman, how is it that we can avoid the trap of being manipulated? Yeah. Especially being manipulated into a relationship that we don't belong in. That's what was going on here. Now, you can go to some other teachers and they can talk to you about what was going on with this thing between Abraham and between Ephron the Hittite. Essentially, many believe that Ephron was trying to manipulate Abraham into a relationship that Abraham didn't have any business being a part of. And Abraham knew it, and he didn't want anything to do with it. So, but we can look at that and say, how can we keep ourselves from being manipulated, from being in a relationship that we don't belong in?
Yeah, that's really important to not get that soul tie, not have that relationship because of that gift of whatever it could be. It could be money. It could be borrowing somebody's car. Let me go ahead and use my car while you need to.
Flattery.
Or it could be, a form of flattery kind of thing, of just giving too much compliments in a way that it becomes very uncomfortable. And so it's a matter of learning that line and having that boundary set up so you don't fall within that. Yeah.
That's great. Did you have anything else for 23?
I have, no, I don't. That's it. Next is chapter 24.
Well, let's turn on over to chapter 24. I have something for verse 3 through 8. What have you got?
I have verse 2.
Verse 2. Well,
No,
I'll tell you.
No. I have 12.
12. Okay.
You go first.
We'll go first with 3 through 8. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. I'm going to start in verse 2. And Abraham said to the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, please put your hand under my thigh, so that I make you swear by Yah, by the Elohim of the heavens and the Elohim of the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but to go to my land and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Yitzhak, Isaac. And the servant said to him, what if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Do I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to him, beware lest you take my son back there. Yah, Elohim of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your seed I give this land. He sends his messenger, his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from my oath. Only do not take my son back there. So this conversation going on between Abraham and between his eldest servant who ruled over his house, we assume that it's Eliezer from chapter 15. That's where Eliezer is named, but it doesn't say in this chapter, so it's speculation. But the things that we're taking out of it, that I took out of this, is 3 things that Abraham was very insistent upon. 1, do not take a wife for my son from the people of this land. That you should take a wife from my land and my relatives. And most importantly, do not take my son back there. Yeah. So there's some things that we can take out of this and just look at it. One is where are you looking for your mate?
Yeah.
Are you looking in the right places? Hopefully you know what the right places are, but I'll spell it out for you. You should be looking inside the covenant of Israel. Yeah. And hopefully we all have an understanding of who Israel is. If you don't, then I don't know what to tell you. Read Ephesians 2. That's the easiest place to tell you. Ephesians 2, Romans 11, to just tell you, if you are in Messiah, you are Israel. That's it. So you need to be looking inside of Israel for your mate. Don't allow your desire for a marriage to cause you to compromise your walk. Mm-hmm. And above all, don't go back there. Don't return to your former way of life. You're a Hebrew. You crossed over. Yeah. Now you're walking in the ways that Yah has revealed to you in his instructions. But, I get it. The desire, being alone is terrible. And, you feel like you're not ever going to meet somebody. Don't lose hope. Don't lose trust. Don't lose faith. Yeah. But
don't compromise.
Certainly just don't compromise.
Yeah. Yeah. Learn to step out and wait for God to go ahead and reveal that person to you. Look at your communities. Join our website. Yes. We have a website created just for that purpose, so people of like-minded that could go ahead and find each other. Join our website, HebrewShebrew.com. because
That's the whole reason for that website.
It's created for that.
It's so that you can start at a common base and
Yes.
work up from there.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. You know, everybody there believes in Messiah. You know, everybody there believes in following the word and following Torah. And so it's your foundation place to go ahead and do.
Yeah.
And that is why Abraham wanted his son, you know, to go ahead and find somebody who is just like him, you know, versus going into the world of other people. And we'll see that in later Torah portions in regards to people that did that and the destruction of what has happened. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to verse 12.
So verse 12 is, I have prayed, ask Yah to show you, be open to what he has for you. And sometimes you have to move. Sometimes you have to go somewhere else. Sometimes you have to just leave where you're at, you know, because God has something else for you. You know, I'm grateful I moved to Tennessee here because I was able to go ahead and meet Mark. You know, if I still was back in another town that I lived in, you know, what would have happened? I don't know if I would have met him or not. I don't know if our paths would have crossed at all, you know, because at that time we were not in the same circles of people, you know, of going to the same Sukkots where we could possibly meet each other. So I have no clue if we would have met or not met. So sometimes you do have to go ahead and move and follow God of what he's telling you to go ahead and do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Verse 21. Now, as we get to verse 21, we see that the servant has having this conversation with Yah. I mean, by the way, notice that this servant, he has his own relationship with Yah.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yep.
Very important.
Yep.
You know, we read last week that Abraham is going to train his house to guard and do the ways of Yah. And that includes his servants. And so this servant also has a great relationship with Yah. He's on a speaking basis with his messenger. So, you know, but he's asked for a sign. Yah has given him the sign that he asked for almost instantaneously. Yeah. And in verse 21, it says, and watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether Yah had prospered his way or not. So I just, you know, take from this, you know, look at it. He was watching Rebecca. He was observing her ways because what did we say a second ago? Abraham wanted a wife for his son, the wife to continue the covenant, right? But a wife who was going to possess the right characteristics, who was going to be able to become that Ezer Kenegdo. We spoke about that back in Genesis, that proper helpmate to come alongside Isaac and to keep the covenant going that had been given to him by God.
Yeah, you know, and Rebecca made herself available.
Yeah.
She was out doing the work of what her father and her brother needed her to go ahead and do. You know, she was at the well at the right appropriate time doing her job. If she was not at her place, say like she woke up that day and said, I don't feel like going today, she wouldn't have ran into the servant who had a husband for her. You know, you don't know what would have happened if she decided to not go ahead and continue on in her life story of what she needed to go ahead and do. You know, she has a purpose as well in this story. You know, and so because of that, she was doing what she needed to go ahead and do. So us ladies, we need to do what we need to go ahead and do. You know, we need to prepare ourselves, you know, internally and externally for that person coming in. And if we are married, guess what? We need to continue doing that as well. It just doesn't stop once we get somebody. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later, you know, but it's like, it doesn't matter if you're married or not married. All of us have our callings of what we're supposed to go ahead and do and what God wants us to do in our life. And we need to continue in that.
Need to continue in that.
Yeah.
Amen. We're just going to read the last little piece of this chapter, and it's verse 67. Now, this is after the servant has brought Rebekah back, and they meet Isaac in the field, and the servant tells Isaac all the matters that happened. And in verse 67 it says, and Isaac brought her, Rebekah, into his mother Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Just the thing that I want to take about that and talk about is marriage is only the beginning. You are to continue to love and to grow in loving your spouse, and to learn to be able to love them in the ways that they are going to feel loved. Not necessarily the ways that you feel loved, but the ways that they feel loved. And if you're going to really do that, then you need to learn about the love languages. We don't have the time to talk about it. There's lots of great resources, but learn about the love languages.
Yeah, and it continues on. Your love continues on in regards to that. In their culture, you have to remember their culture. So you have to go back to their culture. Their culture was one way. Our culture is a little different. So we need to remember that. She did not meet him until then. That would be scary right now. We all see those programs that are out there in regards to meeting somebody without even knowing them and then deciding to go ahead and get married to them, And yes, that can happen. Some people, that definitely can still happen, but you need to remember their culture. Their culture was very different than what our culture is now. And so make sure you take that into consideration when you are looking for a spouse. And when you are in the world that we do live in, you need to be careful in regards to that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about enough for now. There are some things we could talk about in 25. If you want to look at it, just look at the issues of passing on an inheritance to your children.
Yep.
And also look at what happens with Isaac and Ishmael.
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah.
Even when there's differences, when something important happens, you got to be able to come together, work together for a common goal. And that's exactly what Isaac and Ishmael did. So, you can look at that relationship and get a lot out of that as well.
Exactly. We definitely encourage you guys to dig in along with us. We want you to go ahead and study the word as well, and come apart from the lens of relationships and be like, oh, wow, I never saw it that way. We want to hear about that, So if you want to email us, you can definitely do that. It is contact us at Shebrew.com. Again, it's contact us at Shebrew.com. You can also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course our Facebook page, and also our Instagram as well, all the social sites. We definitely want to go ahead and connect with you and be able to have a good conversation and just be able to have some fellowship time frame, since we are talking about, God's word and relationships. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a good week.